Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, hey
So,
everybody. You know what? I always, when in my videos, I always sound like a little kid. I'm like, hey everybody. And then
hey,
you had
y'all.
the, hey y'all, that made you sound so.
Choose your words carefully.
No, it was like a catchphrase. Like everybody knows Marcy from hey y'all. Just so
And sometimes when
quintessential.
I'm trying to go through my feed and look at a specific video and I'm thumbing through fast, so I'll hear like,
Uh,
hey, y'all, hey, y'all, hey, y'all. And I'm just like, shut up. Stop
God,
right there.
stop.
On the videos that I don't say that, if I just go right into dialogue or if I edit it in a way that that part's out, people ask, like, where's the hey, y'all?
Yeah,
Like, it offends them.
it's a fixture. And hey, y'all that are watching. Now, if you were with us last week, we were bumbling along through the internet, through the Wi Fi. And so far, so good. I'm very impressed with us right now. That the quality of our video and sound is where people can actually hear us and see us.
So maybe it's going to improve. It's just going to keep
It's
improving.
just going to keep getting better. Now, here's one thing. I didn't start off with any Jamba Juice music. We got to figure out an intro. I got the headset to be more professional.
And I feel like you kind of set me up for failure. So you
I
would look
did.
like,
I
yeah,
did.
it was purposeful. It was purposeful. I feel it. I'm feeling that way. So
Oh,
I feel like I just look like I'm just sitting at home chilling and you're like focused,
working. I'm really
plan.
focused and working hard. Now, I also put this weird background on.
I saw that.
Why didn't you
Well,
tell me so I
I
could?
thought you did it on purpose. Tim
What
Snow
happened?
just, oh, see, now I really feel like it. You better
Wait.
fix this immediately. That's better.
Well, I feel like this is too big faced. Is this too big faced for
Well,
people?
what if we, how did you, well, maybe we need to come up with some kind of cute background.
Oh boy, what does cute background mean?
Well, something cute, something cute. Let me say this first. First of all,
Okay.
I'm slightly embarrassed because we're trying to get our act together and Tim Snow, who has been having this podcast for forever, right, is on, of course, watching our inadequacies. And good evening to you, Tim. Thanks for stopping in. And
Hey
then
Tim.
Cold Blue is asking a question, Jennifer, off of YouTube, asking, did we ever drink prison wine?
Well, you answer that first.
Well, I made prison wine not at the real unit, not in real prison, but at the ID unit, at the intake unit at Plain State Jail. We made I had this big plan, right? Because we
Okay.
got the fruit for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. My birthday's on the 28th of December. So naturally, our plan was to make this hooch. Um, and we used a couple of empty peanut butter jars, which is not enough room, first of all. And then we used bread from the chow hall for yeast, and we tied it up in a hairnet so
Oh
like
my god.
crumbs wouldn't get.
Oh my god.
Yeah. We used stolen sugar, and it was awful. Yeah, Tim says he doesn't like it. They would boil it and turn it into white lightning in the feds. So much better. That it probably was. It was horrible.
Did you drink it?
We drank it. I wasn't
Did you?
alone. I wasn't like, I mean, I was depressed during my incarceration, but I wasn't
Right.
like drinking alone. No, it was there was four of us taking some big swigs and kind of, yeah. And we we never I didn't ever feel an effect from it. It was pretty much
Were you
just
sick?
like torturing
Did you
each
get
other.
sick off of it?
We didn't get sick. No,
It's
I didn't. I'm
unbelievable.
fairly certain nobody else. Are you thinking we should have gotten sick?
Well, I mean, I remember when I was working in the library at Mountain View, I remember reading an article in the newspaper about some prison upstate that they tried to create prison wine known as hooch, and they all got botulism. They all got extremely deathly ill because if not made the right way, you're drinking bacteria, and so pretty sure
I
I would never.
I well, I didn't consider the risks, frankly. I was it
I'm
was
depressed. I'm upset. Let's
it
get
was the
drunk.
first my first birthday in prison, and I had a 20-year sentence, and I think I might have been willing to take the risk at that point, frankly.
I
So,
understand.
Jennifer, they're asking where you did time at.
So I did time at, I did 2 years in the Texas Youth Commission, and then I did time at Crane. I did a little time at Lane Murray when I was younger, but the second trip was about 10 years at Mountain View. Um, I don't, did y'all ever harass people that came over from Mountain View for stuff? Did you, Marcy? Tell the truth.
Absolutely, because y'all were
God.
spoiled over there. And frankly, in the summer, while I was taking college classes back in the day when they transported people from Mountain View to our unit to take classes, and they're coming in all refreshed. It's 110 degrees outside, and they're coming in, just looking fresh and feeling fine. And we are dying in 130-degree weather. Yes, we gave them hell. Absolutely, we did. It's so funny.
Haters.
Somebody
Haters, man.
commented, I think on Instagram yesterday, somebody commented on one of my videos and said it's because I went to a rich prison, a special prison for rich people. In my mind, I thought, damn, I didn't even make it to Mountain View. I was not in a special prison.
So you were one of the people yelling at us, talking shit to us because we couldn't help it. We had air conditioning and clean laundry. Marcy, that wasn't our
And
fault.
good food. And good food. Can we throw that out there? It was a small unit. You had good food too, Jennifer.
We did have pretty decent food. Now, if you want really good food, it's Crane Riverside because they have the culinary arts program over there. And when I got shipped over there for a couple of months, baby, I'd never seen so much food on a tray in my entire life. It was so good. So good.
So meanwhile, you were living in the air-conditioned unit, eating good food, and you had decent clothes from laundry, and I was eating tuna noodle casserole 3 times a week.
Now let me back up though. I did almost 10 years at Riverside and a little time at Lane Murray when they first opened Lane Murray. So I do understand. I did experience that as well. But the second time I got locked up, I was like, Jesus, I need your help right now. Right now, going through classification. Please, dear God, don't send me to Lane Murray or Hobby. Please send me to Mountain View. And it was like, Marcy, we had like 30 people on chain at reception. And they said, okay, 28 of y'all are going to Lane Murray. 2 of you are going to Mountain View. Baby, I picked up that chain bag and just started walking because I'm one of those 2. And I was. Jesus came through because yeah, I did. What's happening with my camera now? I was bragging on her.
That's the juju I'm sending you right now. Yeah. Let's see. They're asking about prison tours, Toonche. What I've never heard of a prison giving tours like to the general public, right?
Oh, to the general public, no. But did y'all have like the students come in, the college kids? We did. I mean, when I was at Crane, I mean, they had the Scared Straight program where they would tell us to terrify children, which we wouldn't. But no, we would have tours come in from like college programs and stuff. And they'd be like, oh, it used to make me mad. Like we were fucking monkeys in a cage. I hated it. Oh, I hated it.
It was horrible. We had that at Lane Murray too, where a group of students and just looking in awe, like we were caged animals. I mean, we were
Yeah.
caged animals. It's very much like going through the zoo and looking at people in their natural, or animals in their natural habitat, right? That's us. That was our home, and they absolutely were doing that. So yeah,
It
but I
was not a pleasant experience for those tours to happen. Gorgeous junk. I mean, I feel like you have good intentions to go just take a look, but it doesn't sit well with the people that are incarcerated. It makes us feel very, like we're on show, like animals. I mean, we already felt like animals so much.
It even felt that way when the training new boots, the
Hmm.
officers. And speaking of officers, Tommy Burris hopped on here, and he's a former correctional officer. So we actually went to the same high school together. So I'm glad to see you, Tommy. And sometimes he'll watch my videos and offer a little insight from the other side of things. But he's on to bigger and better things. He's I think a truck driver now and enjoying life a lot more.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Could you ever be a correctional officer, Tunchi? I mean, just think about it. If they let you right now, what would that look like for you? What would that offer look like for you?
I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Now, when I was younger, don't tell anybody, but when I was younger, of course, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and then um, I wanted to be a cult leader. Now, let me preface that with I just wanted to be a leader, but I would see like, strong leaders that would get all these people to do something crazy. But I was like, well, what would it be like to be a leader that like you got people to do good things? So maybe I shouldn't say cult leader, but like somebody who really motivated a lot of people. But there for a while, I wanted to be a police officer. I went one Halloween dressed. I couldn't make up my mind to be if I was going to dress up as a cat or a sheriff. So I went as a sheriff cat. But I did for a while. Now, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely. First of all, not just because I've been there and I know what that feels like, but they don't pay their staff well. They don't treat them well. They treat them almost as badly as the people incarcerated there. So
Yeah,
no.
they're
Would you?
they
What would
are.
that look like for you?
Well, absolutely not. First of all, I would get in trouble right away. Just Tim's talking about he'd love to sell cigarettes. He could make a fortune, right? He could get rich. Uh, Someone that's been on the inside already has kind of a working knowledge of how that kind of thing would go down. But I don't think I would be in there like trying to smuggle tobacco. I would just be wanting to help all the time. And I can't imagine being in a position where I have access to all of these free world medications and
Hmm.
just simple things like, do you remember in the summers how people would, well, you don't remember from your 10 at Mountain View because they had air conditioning, right? But in real prison, they remember how people would get those rashes from
Hmm.
heat
From heat.
rashes, and
Yeah.
there's nothing they sold on commissary, and there is nothing that they were giving at medical to relieve that for those ladies. And I'm just thinking about stuff like that, and cases, and man, I'd be pulling other officers' cases that I knew were BS, and they'd hate me. I'd get fired. I'd get fired.
Yeah. So one of my ex-girlfriends that I lived with in Houston, I was actually on parole at the time, but she had just finished college, and you've got to have a job, and she had put in. I said, look, it's desperate. Like we have to pay bills. You're going to have to get a job. I know one place that will hire you right now, and so um, she worked at, I believe it was Darrington. So she went through the training, and she would come home and she would tell me, "Oh my God, Jennifer, like they are propping up the lady's hands so she can shoot the target. like the lady can't fill out the form because she had some reading problems. She was like, they are just pushing people through. It doesn't matter. Like, they'll pass the test for you. So then she lasted 1 month at Darrington. And when she would come home, I would tell her, take that uniform off in the closet. I don't want to see it. And so, but then she said, Jennifer, I can't do it. I can't do it. She goes, I see stuff every day. I report it to the supervisor. There's a guy in his cell standing in sewage, and they don't
Oh
give
my
a
gosh.
damn. She said, and my degree's in social work. I can't handle this. I want to help, but every day, everything that I report is falling on deaf ears. I can't handle this. So she got a job somewhere else. But like,
Yeah,
nah,
I can't
bro.
imagine. I can't imagine, seeing the living conditions and, yeah. So they said, why are the suicide rates so high among correction officers? So, the statistics for PTSD symptoms, it's 30 something percent of correctional officers display PTSD like symptoms. That percentage is higher than veterans. It's a very harsh work environment. It's dark. It's it's not there. It's not a place for humanity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know over my decade long incarceration, I personally know 9 female inmates that committed suicide and 2 officers that committed suicide. And that's just that I personally know. Now, we knew of officers on other units that it happened during that time period, and it's horrible. And even if the gray pants versus white pants, inmate versus officer, when that happens, whether it's an inmate or an officer, it was horrifyingly sad. It's just the conditions are so bad.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like, I can't even, through all my time, I mean, I remember lots of officers that took their life in the pickets. You know what I mean? Like, on property, the women that I knew that you know, unalive themselves. It's a horrible, dark, um, and I knew some women that had tried to do that and ended up in vegetative states and had harmed themselves. And it's a dark, dark place. Because imagine you're the person that has to enforce the inhumanity. Like, you're the person that has to treat other human beings um, as if they're not fully human, and that takes a toll. Um, yeah.
And even seeing, like, the conditions are harsh enough and inhumane enough. The rules are set up unfairly and unjustly, right? So even just dealing with that, but then also to see the more of it. So you're seeing people, you're seeing officers that have completely submerged in that role and are abusing their power and taking it further. You're seeing inmates, who are at the lowest point in their life. They are losing their kids to CPS, their marriages are falling apart, they're losing their parents and can't go to the funeral. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's hard. So if we had a producer, like if we were big time this time next year, when we get a comment like, Tim Snow's telling us about this lieutenant, what would happen is our producer would quickly look it up and it would pop up on our side screen, right? And then we
Mhm.
could talk about it. So I didn't hear about this suicide, at Gib Lewis. Did you hear about that? Did you know about it, Jennifer?
Well, I don't. I think there was one recently over the past year. It's been
Yeah.
bad. I mean, COVID. I mean, definitely escalated all this stuff, and the problem too is that TDCJ takes so long to report things, especially the people who are incarcerated. Their suicides. It takes them so long to report it as such. And sometimes, well, I mean, you look at the things that happened at Hobby years ago. I think it's gotten a little bit better, but I mean, those deaths were heat related. But of course, they didn't mark them as heat related. They marked them as, heart failure and heart attack. And it's like, yeah, because it's 130 degrees in this cell, and this person has underlying health conditions. But the reasons for, I think also officers, them being so vulnerable to that is, I mean, what else is going on in their lives outside of prison? I mean, there's factors too, like poverty or, conditions at home, or, the type of environment or city that they're living in. I mean, they're set up for, this type of thing. So, yeah.
Sure. It's horrible. We have to move on to something else because I'm not gonna be sad this whole hour. And not
Okay.
that that's not an important topic, because it definitely is. And I will say, I am excited about, I'm getting to participate in a documentary coming up. I think they're going to start filming in March, and it's about solitary confinement. And it just talks a lot about the suicide rate, how raised that is, but we'll touch on that. Um, Tim Snow said he did a video on the officer that recently shot himself. You guys can check him out. He's commenting from his Facebook page, so you can see where he's at.
I do want to highlight this question. Is any unit safer than others? I know there are several in Gatesville. Well, Kathy, my experience is, and Marcy's is with women's units. I'm going to say that the least safe is Hobby and Lane Murray. Would you agree?
I would say that for sure. Statistically speaking, absolutely. And Hobby probably a little more so. I think there's more incidents at Hobby than Lane Murray. Both of those units are maximum security units, and Mountain View is also, but Hobby and Lane Murray house a large amount of women in comparison, and so I think that probably has something to do with it.
And well, in their cultures there, those units have because every culture at every unit is different. It's like its own little city. Um, that affects it. Staffing affects it. Mountain View is usually well staffed, clean, and highly secure because you've got death row, you've got protective custody, you've got the facility where they take you for crisis. So that unit is, everything is by the book, very secure. And there's always a lot of media presence there too, for high profile cases. So
So
now,
their behavior.
right. So I think one place that sometimes it slips our mind is Plain State. Plain State Jail is the thing of nightmares. It's horrid. It is disgusting. It's a state jail, but it's horrid. We could do a whole video on Plain State one day. Then I hope we should do that again. We should make some of our sessions just about each unit, because people would find the conversation, and then all the women that we know would definitely want to participate and argue over,
Yes,
was it
yes.
was it right to be mean to the girls at Mountain View because they had air conditioning, Marcy?
Well, why would you put me on the spot like that?
I'm
No,
just
but it's
saying.
what it was. It's what it was. And that's what it was.
Oh gosh, let's see. Are you both familiar with Darlie Routier's case? I know she's on death row at Mountain View. Do you have any opinions as to whether you think she's guilty or innocent? She said she's not guilty. Marcy, you go.
Oh no, no, that, that sounds like you. Well, definitely I'm familiar with her case. I'm
Here we go. Let's do it, because I feel like you took a side because it's gonna be a good debate here. Let's
well,
hear it.
yeah. Well, you tell me, what do
No,
you
you
think?
go first.
What's your answer for part B? That's the question. Now, I have opinions on death row. I don't have direct I've never had direct content or contact with her. I was not on the unit with her. She's on death row, so she's housed completely separate from everyone. A lot of people, for sure, she's the most asked about notorious person, maybe because it's more recently that people ask me about in multiple videos randomly. Everybody wants to know. I don't know. I haven't watched enough of statistics, or I haven't read enough about her case to know if I have an opinion on if she's innocent or not.
I think we both agree that we are against the death penalty. Obviously,
Definitely.
I don't agree with the death penalty. Period for anybody. Um, Now the question is, what is my opinion about Darlie's case? And I don't think she did it. I think she's innocent. And there's lots of reasons to that. So you leaned in. You leaned in,
Yes,
and
because
this is
I
why.
want to.
Okay.
I,
So here's the deal with Darlie. So this was in the 90s, when right after Susan Smith had let her car go into the lake and lied about her children. So there was kind of this hysteria about that, right? So then you have this woman who is very, very blonde, very Dallas, very vibrant. She's got the big Texas hair. They're spending a little bit above their means, but she loves her two kids. She just had a baby. For what it was worth, the family got along. There wasn't um, any weirdness. Everybody knew she loved her kids. Well, when this intruder attacked, she barely survived. Now, in the 90s, when her trial happened, it was she's this. There was no clear motive. It wasn't really money. They didn't get a whole lot of money from the kid's death. It wasn't, oh, she's angry or jealous or she's ill or any of that. There was no clear motive other than look at her spraying silly string on her kid's gravesite, which the entire neighborhood was there. Her entire family was there. They were having, the community was having a birthday celebration at the kids' gravesite, which earlier in the day she had been hysterical, but nobody caught that on camera. So she was basically just crucified in the media as being this gaudy, rich Dallas suburban mom who hated her kids. And they're like, well, she did this and then superficially cut herself and, all that crap, right? So this is what caught my attention. And this is when I was at Crane and I was watching 2020. So there was a true crime author, and I forget which one it is. She wrote a book called Precious Angels, and it was about the whole trial. And she ripped Darlene a new ass, man. She was laid it out. This woman is guilty. So they released the pictures that were not allowed to be introduced, that the prosecution had suppressed. And it was the pictures of her injury in the hospital and her bruising on her arms. So her bruising on her arms was just almost black. My camera's jacking up.
defense wounds.
Defense wounds, like she was holding someone off. And then her cut to the neck was just an inch. I don't even think it was an inch. I think it was like a half an inch away from her main artery. Like it was plunged deep. It wasn't a scratch. It wasn't Downs, the lady that did Small Sacrifice, that killed her kids in the car, where she just scratched herself and nicely bandaged. No, Darlene's neck wound was to the meat throat. And when I saw that, and the lady that wrote the book said, I completely take back everything I said in that book. I will tell, and I think there's still something on her website that says, don't buy this, don't read this, because I didn't have all the information. And so then ABC did a documentary in 2019 that kind of lays out the case again from a different perspective, like looking at a woman, kind of going back to like with Melissa Lucio, this lens that we look at women and mothers and we hold them at certain standards and they have to behave a certain way for us to believe them. Like a grieving mother wouldn't just sit and confess to something out of trauma. A grieving mother wouldn't spray silly string. I mean, that was what got her convicted. And there's some other stuff. There's a bloody sock out blocks away from the house that's got her and the kids' blood on it. It's just complicated. But no, that's my long-winded. I'm friends with Darlie, and that doesn't affect it. I became friends with her later. Always, as soon as I saw that 2020, I was like, Lord have mercy, they've locked up this woman who didn't do this.
So has she exhausted her appeals? Do you know? I don't even know.
So they're waiting on some DNA. So the state has fought tooth and nail to get this unidentified DNA tested. And they've had to raise money to get a private lab to look at it because I mean, this is going on 20 years later. We're running out of stuff to test. They've run these samples before. And so the Innocence Project picked up her stuff, and they're still waiting on the DNA testing because there was unidentified DNA found at the scene. So I'm going to be hysterical if they ever give her an actual execution date. I mean, I was about Melissa Lucio too because I knew her, but Darlene's been there a long time, and I really believe. Can you imagine, like, you're getting accused of killing your children and you didn't do it, and they're going to kill you? I can't even. And then I think her remaining child got cancer, and I don't know if he survives or if he's still alive, but she's just had it rough. She's just had it really rough.
Either way, can you imagine if her child, I mean, just even if you had snapped, and if people, I might get some hate for this, and this is very different than Darlie's case. But what about, I was 17 years old when my first baby was born, and he was very colicky. And I remember at that time, which was in the 90s, so that was kind of a big topic, was mothers who did bad things to their kids, right? But I remember thinking, like, just rocking him back and forth and thinking, I could never let somebody babysit him because I love him with all of me, and I'm about to throw him against the wall because he was just crying and crying. So I think I have a little bit of understanding for mothers that just lose it, right? So I'm just thinking about, if that were, I'm just putting myself in those shoes. What if I had lost it, as a young mother, and now I'm in prison living with that. And then I have another child at home that it takes ill and I can't be there. And whether they survive cancer or not, just living with all of that, I can't imagine. Just me as a mother, Jennifer, living with my crime and knowing the harm I put on my kids, I just can't imagine it. It's such an awful situation. Postpartum depression and all of that. Yeah, I do have a little bit of understanding about all of that. Not so much these crazy cases, Andrea Yates and all of that. That's a different deal, right? But
right, because she was completely she was tried the first time. And this is what's so crazy about our legal system, is that she was clearly not well, had clearly not been well, had severe psychotic postpartum, because that's a thing. That's the next level up from just regular postpartum. And so her first trial, when they tried her and found her guilty and gave her life and was trying to give her death, this woman who fits clearly the definition of not being mentally competent during her offense or after, the reason she got that overturned, this is crazy, was that one of the witnesses said that she copied her crime from a Law and Order episode. And so her appellate attorneys went and checked, and there was no such episode. They overturned her trial on that and gave her a new trial.
Wow.
Oh, just on that. Something so
Right.
when the lady was clearly not well, and nobody held her husband responsible for knowing that she wasn't well all those times, and leaving her with her kids. And so then when they found her not guilty by reason, essentially, of, they call it something else, but it's reason of insanity. People don't realize that she's still in that state hospital, and she's probably never going to leave. She's actually even said, "I don't. What would I do? I don't want, I can't care for myself." And I'm sure the heavy burden of what she's had to deal with after she had some clarity of mind, you
Right.
know.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So, side fact, side not so fun fact, but fact nonetheless, is that the doctor that treated her and testified for her was the same doctor that treated me when I went to the psych hospital during my
Really?
yes, yes, and he talked about it. It was really odd. It was odd, not that he talked about her case or details, but uh, he kind of like a bragging right for him. It was really peculiar, his behavior, for him to tell me while I'm a patient in, I mean, in the psych hospital, in the prison
Totally not
psych
appropriate.
hospital. Yeah, yeah, it was really odd. It
Well,
was really
it's interesting. It makes me think, Marcy, like, you know, when we're on TikTok and we're looking at videos, and there is this understanding between those of us that know each other and have been locked up, right? With all of the women that we know in TDCJ, many of us know the big cases and the wild, that people are always so curious about. And we tell their stories I feel like, with and understand that Melissa knows I tell her story. Darlene knows that. They want that, because being locked up, you know how it's so hard to have your story told in a way that articulates your humanity, and maybe some things that are not that flattering, because you're human, right? What pisses me off to no end is what this gentleman did to you, and which I see people on TikTok do all the time, is they use these stories for attention or clout, or one lady in particular who
I
has
was almost wishing, because I absolutely know where you're going, and I wish I was smart enough to pull that video up on my computer and share the screen, um, because we could dive into that. That yeah,
see
yeah.
if you can see if you can pull it up.
So
That most
this is the
recent
thing.
one. That most recent one.
Anybody that's looking at me on my computer right now, if I'm making faces or leaning into the computer, I ask that you not screenshot Toonche. Okay, let me see.
Ariana's here. She'll screenshot for us. Hi,
Yeah,
Ariana.
right. Right. I want to let me mute. Okay, there we go. Hang on, because I muted my computer. So Toonche, you talk to him. I'm finding it. And I think it's gonna work. I have faith that it's kind of gonna work.
You
Let's
you
see. Gordon
are you
Weiner.
going to open it? Okay, you're going to open TikTok on your laptop. Yes. She's okay. So so yeah. So
Um,
what drives me absolutely crazy is that you'll see people, who don't
okay.
know. Okay, Marcy's.
Okay.
Got
So
it.
how do I who knows if I can share the screen?
I should. Look at the bottom. It doesn't have the
Oh,
little
it
arrow.
says share screen.
So then just pick. Man,
I
where's
had to quickly
Faith?
glance at what else I had pulled up.
You have
Okay.
a close that porn. Close that porn.
Right. There's no, I have my book that I have been working on forever. Is it sharing or no way? Oh, I had to
Help
do
us,
a
Blair. Help us, Blair.
okay, we're working it. You know what? Blair Bear, do you know how oftentimes she has helped me on TikTok live? She
She's
knows
great.
everything.
She's like, Jennifer, we can't hear you. You need a better selfie stick. And I'm like, I know, because my hand was like this.
Okay, it says so I had to change my settings,
Mm-hmm.
and it said it may not work until I
Going on here? Oh, she got a whole
hold on.
dump.
It said it may not work until I close the screen and come on. Man, we see,
Should
I
be
should have
able to do
practiced
that.
this because I knew that I wanted to do this. Um, it's
Well,
sad that when I Google her name, uh, okay. Okay, here's the
I feel
thing.
like it's
Now I
gonna
don't know how to
happen.
get back to the screen where y'all are. I'm working on it. Let's see.
She's got it.
Golly. Yeah, so this is about Erin Caffey.
Oh no, Texas Prison Stories. We're using Restream. It's a local company based out of Austin. I have used StreamYard before, but I don't know. I just find this interface better. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You know, I like the techie stuff.
What I want to know now is how do I get back to the screen where I can see you?
Oh my God. Look at the bottom.
Okay. Why did I do this? I'm so sorry. Oh, wait. Okay.
There we are.
Choose what to share. It says wants to share the contents of your screen. Okay. Okay. So then it says choose what to share. So then what?
Does it tell you what tabs?
Wait. Y'all can definitely not see my screen, right?
No, honey, we can't see your screen. We can't see the
Man.
Gmail
Oh,
form
wait.
that you're looking at.
Unable. Yeah, it's not going to let me unless I log out and log back in
That's weird.
because, and I
Show us
could
on your, do you think that you can show your phone? I
possibly,
mean, because my phone's pretty clear.
possibly, and especially if I turn this ring light off. So hold on. I'm going to
We'll,
turn the
we'll,
volume up also then.
okay, we'll do it the old-fashioned way, and then we'll figure out the share screen.
Okay.
We'll be better prepared for.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Wait. Okay.
2 days in a Texas prison with one of the most notorious killers in America. And y'all, those 2 days started 10 years of living hell for me. I've shared parts of this story before on TikTok, but I'm going to go into some details that I haven't shared before and the long-term effects that it has had on me. I was working one time with this inmate, and she was 17 years old, had been tried and convicted as an adult. She was in an adult prison for masterminding and participating in the slaughter of her entire family.
So let me pause it real quick because she was in a Texas prison as a volunteer, which volunteers that come into Texas prisons are there for religious purposes. That's just 99.9% of it. I would bet my everything I own that she was there with a religious group. So she was there with supposedly good intentions. Yeah. You tell me if you want me to pause it at some point. We'll get professional next time.
Yeah, go for it.
Her dad was the lone survivor, but unfortunately, her mother and 2 younger brothers did not survive the attack. And this weekend, as I'm working with her, I had never met her before and I had not heard her story. And so she was able to take me for a ride, basically telling me the version of the story that she wanted me to hear. And what I didn't know is that she is a psychopath. And she was.
Okay, but in her video earlier before this, Jennifer, she clearly says that she knew what Erin's charge was going in, and she was selected to talk to Erin because of her charge and because she was young and this broad was young. I hope y'all are hearing me because it just said I
No,
have connection.
yes. No, we can hear
Yeah.
you. And the video, you can hear the video.
Okay. So she contradicts herself already, right?
getting sick pleasure out of toying with me, watching my emotional responses, and just seeing what she could get away with. And I was totally sucked in. I totally was buying everything she was telling me. And I felt pretty safe around her because she was a small, petite person. But the moment that everything in the room changed was whenever she was looking down. She really wasn't even looking at me. She was just kind of looking down and talking real soft like this. And all of a sudden, she just does this. And y'all, when she looked up at me that way, there was a black darkness in her eyes that I have never seen in anybody before, and it scared the shit out of me. I suddenly felt extremely vulnerable, like I was in a predatory environment and I was not safe. I was clearly shaken. I finished my work, got out of there, but I had to come back the next day to work with her.
Skirt. Okay, she was shaken. She was scared. She was fearful. There was this darkness around her, and she had to come back the next day. She was a volunteer. It wasn't her job. She wasn't paying her bills to be at this prison in Texas. She wanted to go back, and so she went back. Not,
Right.
I mean, it's just, she's such a, oh, so frustrating. So you sent this to me, and I started a recording just like we're doing now, where I just stop, but it's just so, I'm nice on my videos.
I know.
This is horrible. And I want to say everything she's saying about Aaron's life in prison does not indicate any of these things. It's completely absurd that this is what this lady is. She's doing this for views. She's
Right.
doing this to make a viral video, and it's working.
Right. Yes.
For a second day. And this second day that I worked with her, I'm coming into the same prison space that we were working in the day before, and I see her from a distance, and what I saw still shakes me to this day. Now, you're going to think I'm crazy or that I'm one of those religious kooky people that constantly hallucinates like demonic spiritual things. I'm not. I'm not the kind of person who sees things, but this day I saw something. I'm looking at this girl from down a ways, and she looks at me, and her face just goes hollow. Her eyes go black and sunken in, almost like I'm looking at a skeletal version of her. And the only thing that I can explain it is that maybe there was something evil around her that almost was standing between me and her, and I was seeing through this thing. And it was a way of me seeing that there is evil around her and that I need to be cautious. But y'all listen, this 2-day weekend with her started 10 years of nightmares, panic attacks, sleep paralysis, seeing shadow figures in my room. To this day, I have had hauntings and unexplained poltergeists in every place I've been.
Okay. So she sees this. So you are scared of someone, and you go back the next day and you see this hollowed face figure with darkness around her, with evil lurking around her, and you still go to approach her to hang out for the second day, because this lady did. She did.
So,
Because
yeah. It's so infuriating. And the first video I did commenting on her original one, it got taken down, it got reported. And I was trying desperately to adhere to community standards. But to listen to somebody who came in under the disguise of prison ministry, spent 2 days with this woman, which is probably roughly 10 hours, if that. And you've made a judgment about her spirit, her crime, her mental health. Oh, I bet you that you didn't really even know who this girl was, didn't think about her again until you got on TikTok and thought, well, what interesting, notorious. Erin was 7, she was younger than that when the offense happened. And she goes on in one video to say she's a mastermind, she's evil, she's a psychopath. Honey, if that's the case, my whole room, it would have attached to me and everybody she did time with that got out. Erin, the word mastermind is not the word I would use for Erin. Erin is actually
not.
No. If anything, she was one of those girls that was and I don't mean this in a bad way, a people pleaser. She was constantly victimized. She was constantly preyed upon, used, manipulated in abusive relationships. And she would teach her peer education stuff. And I think she's a peer educator again, because it gave her a sense of meaning and purpose. And she is not any of that. Lady, you have no idea who that girl is. And those of us that did time with her, how dare you? How dare you?
She has some nerve, and she's doing it definitely for clout. She's doing it coming from a very uneducated, as far as Erin's true self goes. But let me just also say this: she's completely lying about the situation. And the video prior to this, where she's describing, y'all, people, if a prison ministry comes in, they don't know my crime. There's nothing in the prison for them to look that up either. I mean, they don't know my name. They don't know. It's absurd for this lady to come on and say, yeah, we got there and they told me I was going to be talking with Erin Caffey, and this is why. Erin Caffey was not in closed custody in a cell. It was nothing like that. She was in general population, housed with, guess what? This is how safe she is. She was housed with people serving 2-year prison sentences in general population. And this lady's making her out to look like a complete monster.
It's and that is where it gets frustrating. If you or I talk about Darlie's case, if we talk about some of the other ladies we know that are a bit well known, I don't want to use the word notorious, but how people see that, and we humanize them and we try to explain their story and try to get people to see that they're just human. They're not any different than anybody else, no matter how outrageous the offense was. You can look back to the story and see all the complicated dynamics to it. So when you take a girl she was younger than 17, 16, 15 when this happened, and you say, oh, she's just a psychopath. She's a psychopath. Without never having lived with her, never having interacted with her other than 2 days. And she hasn't just done one video about this. She continues to do videos about it. And she is using those very brief interactions to parlay into this. I've got 10 years of demonic spirits and seeing shit. And honey, maybe that has to do with you. Maybe that has to do with you and your intentions towards other people. It's just, I hate it. I hate listening to other people talk about women I did time with. And there are some people that I'm like, ooh, honey, she is kind of like that. Like, yeah, right. I mean, you're spot on. And because there are some people that unfortunately, they are a little grimy, right? Like they haven't.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are sometimes I watch a 2020 episode and thought, well, they didn't even touch on how bad she was or how bad she is, because I've known her and I've lived with her and I've dealt with her day in and day out. And Erin is not that person. So yeah, for sure. It's just for clout, and it's pathetic and it's harmful. And the reason it's harmful is because it portrays incarcerated individuals as monsters.
Right.
And the fact is, the majority of the crimes that are committed, there is just like you said, a huge circle of circumstance around. It's not, generally speaking, for the majority of the people that I was incarcerated with on a maximum security unit, including people with life sentences, there was all kinds of things going on long before that crime was even committed, oftentimes, that led them to that place. And yeah. So it is harmful. It puts a stigma that doesn't need to be put, and it makes it harder for positive prison reform to come, because people hear that kind of story. The 600,000 people that follow her hear that kind of story, and it paints a picture of what women in prison are and what they look like. And it's harmful.
Yeah. And especially, I'm super sensitive to this narrative about children that commit crime, especially violent offenses, that they are inherently evil or inherently soulless and without conscience, because that was what was told to me from psychiatrists, from other people for many, many years, because I was 15 when my offense happened. And just to see it done to somebody else who I know, who it's who I've lived with. I discern people pretty well. No, romantic relationships. No, I don't do such a good job. Well, actually, I do discern well. I just choose to ignore it. But for the most part, I mean, I'm spot on with people, and that wasn't Aaron.
Yeah, well, the bottom line is this lady talks about she wasn't able to sleep and this and that. But the fact of the matter is the people living on either side of Aaron right now, I promise that they are sleeping just fine. They are not feeling any kind of weirdness or craziness or dark spirit. Now, do they feel a darkness in the prison system? Absolutely. But they're not, it's not a direct result from being incarcerated with Aaron, right?
Right.
So we have just a few minutes, and I did want to answer this question. It's down a little bit, Jennifer, and I can't pin comments because I guess you took that privilege away from me. So, so there's somebody. Just I want to hit on this the last 5 minutes. Someone is saying they are 59 years old.
Okay,
and
yes,
they committed an offense that was really similar to mine. They might be going to prison. And she's asking, do elderly people get housed separately? What do we have to tell her? So, Kathy, first of all, thanks for joining and thanks for interacting and asking a question. So they don't separate elderly people. We're all mixed together. You're going to be with youngsters and people that are lots of years older than you in the same living area. But people in prison, especially in women's prison, they're not just walking around attacking people. There is definitely violence that happens in a prison, and I can tell that your question is you're a little bit concerned about your safety, right? Because of your age. But Jennifer, she doesn't need to worry so much, right? She can go in and stay out of people's business. That's the main thing. Don't speak on anything that doesn't have to do with you. Don't see something and tell somebody else you saw it, even if you think that somebody else is your friend. You just keep, and that's how you're going to be safe. Lots of people go to prison and never get in one fight. Jennifer, how many fights did you get in? Not girlfriend fights, right?
Oh,
zero.
Yeah, no, zero. I had 2 minor cases in 20 years, and
so
I got
that happens. People do that. People do their time that way all the time. I took a little bit rougher of a road. And so if you watch my videos, you probably see me talking about some of that. And that might be where that thought comes from. But you don't have to. I hope you don't have to go. I hope they reinstate your probation and maybe work with your restitution payments. Right. But if the worst case scenario happens and they send you, you can just stay to yourself. Yeah.
Just stay to yourself. As an older person, there are some stereotypes in prison that people look. My experience with older ladies when I was locked up, they got in people's business. They didn't like people having sex in the other cubicle. They didn't like having to see it. They didn't like, they ran things in all the time. And what running something in means they snitched, they told. And I'm not talking about stuff like someone's getting hurt. I'm talking like people just living their life in a prison setting, and that will get you hurt because they don't care that you're an older lady. Them youngsters do not care. But if you stay to yourself, mind your own business, don't gossip, and if somebody tries to bully you or pick on you, you just stand firm and they'll leave you alone, and they'll give you actually twice the amount of respect because you are an older woman. But if you're a busybody older lady, it's not going to be, it won't be pleasant, easy time.
That's right. That's right. She says she's too shy to get into someone's business. So you're
Good.
going to make connections if you go, and I hope you don't. But I think that people don't realize that friendships are definitely made, bonds are made, and it's just like going into any other situation, a new workplace or a new school, where you peep the scene, right? You just kind of check to see what everybody's about, and you're going to meet people with common interests as you, and it's okay to have a friend in there, but still don't get in people's business, right?
Right.
So Jennifer, we're at our hour already, and I can't believe it.
We did it. Our viewership is going up. We're going to be consistently Wednesdays at 7, y'all. Marci's internet is good.
Yes, and the dog, I only had to throw the shoe at the dog one time for whining, and so that was good.
In a very intense moment, she's like,
I know it. I tried to do it off camera. I didn't realize my reach could reach, or that it could be seen right there. So we didn't talk about what we had planned on talking about, but this was great. So you guys
Perfect.
brought some awesome questions and topics, and we appreciate each and every one of you. If you didn't catch the whole broadcast, you can catch it on either one of our Facebooks or our YouTube, and we'll see y'all later.
bye, y'all. I got the y'all in.
Yeah, good. I'm going to wave. This is